Haven't you ever been curious about curls?
Yeah, no, I have, yeah. Well, you know.
Mm-hmm. But you never kissed one.
No, I'm a control freak. I was too afraid to try anything.
Relax. Okay, this is going to be fun for you. Sex with another chick, it is awesome. Two girls together, the sex just goes on and on. Wave after orgasmic wave. There's no natural ending.
But then how do you know when it's over?
Eventually somebody gets hungry. Usually me. 2 hours in, order a pizza. Very satisfying.
Did you say 2 hours?
Hello.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey.
You guys, congrats on season 2.
Hey, there's a fucking car. Well, it's kind of a car. It looks like a golf cart.
What?
What is that? Is that one of the sponsors, Verizon? I'm sorry.
No, go for it. We embrace this.
We can acknowledge
Is
it.
is that a car you would fucking drive in New York City? Because you're gonna die.
It's
a guy on a bike could hit you and kill you in that car.
It's a car you would drive in a country town in France or something. It doesn't look like a New York City car.
No,
to
it
me.
doesn't.
Oh, take me there. I
Doesn't
want to go to a
work.
country town
Doesn't
in
work.
France.
What's going on?
Guys, congratulations on season 2. I have to
you.
say, I watched 5 episodes. I liked season 1. I like season 2 even more. I think it's
We do
I think
too.
It's great. I love the direction you're going in.
Thank you. What?
Cool. No, I thought you were gonna talk. I was just sitting here listening.
I thought you paused so long. I thought you were gonna go. So you didn't like season 1? What the fuck, dude?
I thought he was mad.
I
got
was
so
actually. I
scared.
thought Liz was gonna speak. So
No,
I was
I
like,
usually know when you are the one that's supposed to talk or me, and I thought that was you were gonna jump in. We're off our game, I guess, right now.
Oh, that's all right. Well, let's talk about season 2. Let's talk about developing it in the writers' room. After finishing season 1, where did you want to go? What did you want to change? What were you thinking about starting this season?
The biggest thing for me, this is a long story, but I'll try to make it as short as possible. There's a great.
We got 20 minutes, man.
We do? All right, so settle in. There's a great writer named Julianne Smolinski. She's known on Twitter as @BoobsRadley. She was voted the funniest woman on Twitter like 3 years ago. She's fantastically talented. She worked on another project for me, and then she was unavailable for season 1 of this show. And I really felt like I wanted a strong female voice. She also has a background in rock journalism before she started doing writing for television. So I wanted to get her into the writer's room and to get her to write some episodes because she's such a strong female point of view. She's got a very eclectic sexual history, which she's not afraid to talk about. And so I wanted to have her come in and write for Ava and Gigi. And in Julianne's case, she's also capable of writing men. I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I speak for myself. Like, I find that I really need the actress's input because I'm not the best guy for write. I can't write women that well. So I can write what I think they would say or write the situation, but I feel like the actresses have to then fill it out for me or change it or whatever. So
it's hard to write for women as a man because that is filtered through so many contexts.
Judgmental lenses.
Yeah, I mean stuff that you can try so hard as a man to not be judgmental, but as like a straight white man in American
Oh,
society.
no, I meant the women are judgmental, like in general.
the women are
yeah, like it's hard for you to get how judgmental women are sometimes, maybe.
well, but the weird thing is that my wife is a novelist. My wife and a lot of women I know, like Julianne, can write men really well. And I shouldn't say we, I won't speak for all people with cocks, but I will say this. I just feel like I always need the actresses to look at it and say, tell me how it would really feel or sound or whatever. So Julianne came in, and Julianne created a lot of the stuff she actually took from her own life. The whole
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the whole arc with Dabby, the character.
That's from
of
her
Dabby.
life?
That's from her
Which
real life.
side was she on?
As a matter of fact, her one of her ex-girlfriends is called Dabby, so that's where we got the name.
Oh, wow.
But then she dated this girl, they broke up, then she was dating a guy, and she actually said to her boyfriend, you have to go to my ex-girlfriend and find out how to give head, because she's really bad at it. So a lot of those things I got from her point of view. And she also helped out on all the other episodes. So I felt like with Ava, the secret of this show, and some people know it, some people don't, is that Ava and Gigi really are the bosses. Flash is not in charge. I think I'm in charge. I'm not. So
the foible of your whole character is that he constantly thinks he's the star and in charge, and he's always falling over himself because he's not.
Because he's not, and he's never going to be. Yeah. So that was great, and also I always feel like the second season of a TV show was my experience on Rescue Me. I know it was Peter Tolan's experience on Larry Sanders, that if the show works, in the second season is when it should really take off, because then the actors know their characters better, the writers know how to write for the actors better. So I felt really great this year in terms of the stuff we were getting on set from all the actors. I thought the girls were just even more amazing than they'd been in the first season, and I felt like the whole thing really started to gel, you know?
We're really in a groove this year, I
Yeah?
think. Yeah.
What did you think about the stuff that Boobs Radley wrote for you?
That was great.
I like Julianne. I want to call her Boobs Radley.
Call her
though,
Boobs
because of her
Radley. It's a
Twitter.
great
She calls herself Boobs Radley,
Oh, okay.
so don't worry about it.
I wonder what
What
the
did you-
origin of that name
Like
is.
the second and third episode where you have a new girlfriend, a lesbian experience
Yeah.
that blossoms. Were you aware that they were writing this in the writers' room, or did you get the script and were like, okay, I guess we're going there?
I did get the script, and I was like, oh, "There's that." But you,
I gave you a heads up.
You
didn't
gave me
I?
a heads up.
Yeah.
You gave me a
What was
heads up.
the heads up?
Well,
You're gonna be a lesbian. for a minute.
Julianne pitched it. Julianne pitched it. We were in L.A. and she said, "Listen, I got a story." And the thing I just told you about her ex-girlfriend, ex-boyfriend. I said, "That's fucking fantastic. I'll just give Liz a heads up." So I just checked in, like, "Are you okay with a lesbian affair?" in a text. And she was
I
like,
said, "Bring it."
"Sure, bring it on." I'm like, "Okay."
I have never had one, so I was very. It was you wrote it. I think how I would have been the same in it. You'll see it when you see it. It's not like. It's interesting. Our show, there are these very sexy moments, but a lot of these sexy moments are completely interrupted by, just a goofy mess. Usually, like something
Well, and the
happens
fact
and
that
it
you-
gets knocked off.
The fact that you live with your dad and are talking to your dad a
And
fair
he sets,
amount.
and they're all trying to get me with, already it's a strange situation. But I really like the scenes with Rebecca Naomi Jones, who plays my girlfriend in the show, Davy. She's really great, and she was in Hedwig, and I saw her in American Idiot, and I was excited to work with her. And we have this
talented.
funny little groove we get into where I guess she's so sexy and cool that it literally knocks Gigi off her pedestal so far that she's just like a blubbering mess. We say I act like Paul Rudd, and I love you, man, if you've seen that movie. I just don't even know what I'm talking. I can't stand straight, and I'm
Yeah.
like,
By the way, if you guys haven't
crazy.
if you haven't seen the episodes yet or any of the promos, her fucking physical comedy in episode 2 is just. I said to her, "Listen, I just want you to be." Because I know Liz, so I was like, "Listen,
I am
want
that
you to
way.
look cool, but end up being so fucking uncool at the club, at the gig." And she went in and just kind of. I said, "Listen, just go in and just."
You think it's because I'm some great physical comedic actress. It's how I am in real life.
I know it is.
I put on
She
really
is.
cool outfits, and then I'm like, here I am. I'm so confident, and then I'll trip almost immediately after. and
You actually just tripped
straight.
into me before we were
Did?
introduced.
I didn't even realize.
Yeah, you did.
Aw.
I'm so used to it. I'm like, boom, there's Liz.
At the end of that episode, I don't think this is giving too much away, but there's a really wonderful brief homage to David Bowie.
Yes.
There's a reference to David Bowie, I think, in the first episode as well. You've said this, and I completely agree. David Bowie, possibly the greatest rock star we've ever had.
Listen,
Passed away.
let's go hands down. I don't know how the contest works overall, but let's just think of it this way, right?
You don't know the rules.
I don't know the rules, but I'm going to make
Point
one right
system.
now. This fucking guy was diagnosed with whatever form of cancer that killed him, David Bowie, right? To think about it, you guys have seen the Lazarus video? Now, how fucking amazing is it that, knowing what he knows, that he makes that he writes that song, then he makes that video, which stars him, and then puts it out into the world. That Friday, when I saw that video, none of us knew that he was dying, right? I thought, wow, that's a fucking great song. What a great video. I love Bowie. And then on Sunday, when I woke up and found out he was dead, I almost couldn't understand how somebody could be that great of an artist to transform their experience into that piece. It's like, I think hands down, he wins greatest rock star of all time officially with that video and with that message to
Yeah.
his fans. I mean, it's crazy.
I mean, the last
Crazy.
song on that album, Black Star, is called "I Can't Give Everything Away," and it's just him saying that over and over and over again. It's like when I heard that, and I was like, "Oh, he just died," and I'm listening to him telling me he couldn't give me everything. I was just like, "That's the end of me
for
for
a
a
good
little
friend
while."
of ours, this is a weird story. If you see this show this year, it kicks off with the death of an old friend of ours, an ex-band member, a sudden death, And the truth is, in real life, Adam Roth, who was a legendary New York City guitar player, and he played with the Jim Carroll Band, the Del Fuegos. He's very well known in rock and roll. He was our technical advisor and also my guitar player in my comedy band. Great, talented guy. He died of cancer very quickly, right before David Bowie did. And so that sort of fed into the story this year, like us taking a sudden death and everybody overreacting to it for comic purposes as well as drama. But I felt like we were all crushed by that event because it happened so fast. And then Bowie died right after the holidays. Adam died right before Christmas. And I felt when I watched that Lazarus video, knowing that Bowie was dead, I was the first time. It made me feel better about Bowie dying, but it also made me feel better about my friend passing, because there's so much spirituality in that song. He starts out singing, I'm up here in heaven. If you haven't seen that video, you have to see it. It's just insane how in touch with his talent and his gift as he was.
It's almost everything that your character fears he'll never be able to do, which is that David Bowie didn't just leave behind an incredible body of work when he passed away. In his final days, he left a goodbye piece of work for everybody.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That will stand on forever, whereas your character has made tons and tons of work that may never live on after his death. It's like everything he fears.
Yeah. Listen, dude, if we're all going to face the facts, right? Because I'm old enough now to realize it, and I have kids that are 26 and 24. And in the span of my lifetime, it's very true, I think, that my kids don't fucking know who John Wayne is. My kids don't know who Cary Grant is. Johnny Carson doesn't mean anything to them. But they know who Frank Sinatra, Tony Bennett, Louis Armstrong, the Beatles. Music, for some reason, a great song, I guess it's because we all have an emotional connection to it somehow. They live on. So I think that's one of the rare parts of show business that actually has elasticity in terms of if you're a legend and if you do great work, it will live on. My kids won't watch black and white movies. So it's like you tell them it's a black and white movie, they're like, you know what I mean? So movies die away, old television shows, some of them get seen again, some of them die away. Music lasts forever. So if you are iconic, that gift that David Bowie gave us is probably still going to be there. My grandkids are going to know who David Bowie is and Frank Sinatra and everybody else. They're not going to know who the fuck I was.
Well, I was just going to ask.
You'll be their grandfather.
That's how they'll know me. The guy who gave us the David Bowie records.
That they'll discover after you. Oh, my grandfather gave me this. Maybe I'll listen to it in like 10 years.
Like, oh no, your grandfather was famous. Well, never mind.
Do you ever struggle with that as an artist? I mean, I feel like as a comedian, you also always wanted to be a rock star in many ways, and sometimes rock stars always want to be actors and vice versa. Mm-hmm. But as you say here and say that musicians live on more than television, more than comedians, do you ever struggle with that? Like you've amassed an incredible body of work since you first started, both in movies and in television. Do you worry that they won't sort of carry on a legacy?
No, I feel like. You can't think that way, dude, because if you're thinking that way, you're going to really fuck it up. And, in the movies, most movies suck, right? So if you make, if 3 out of 10 movies that you're in.
That's statistic, most?
Most movies suck, let's be honest. Most movies fucking blow.
And even the shittiest movies are a miracle that they got made.
They got made,
yeah.
Right. And nobody's going to be watching fucking, Operation Dumbo Drop fucking 10 years from now. I don't think anybody's watching it even now. But... in any career, I'm old enough now to see like the 1 or 2 films that I made that have some similar lasting presence. One is The Ref, because every Christmas it gets played as the anti-It's a Wonderful Life. So you see that, and I'm actually proud of that movie. You go, oh, okay, that's nice, because that movie's going to last for a while. The other one is for me is The Sandlot, which it was like, I did that movie. I did that movie because I was doing a lot of R-rated movies, and I wanted my kids to be able to see a movie. So it's weird that 25 years later, that's still getting seen. But there's there's some movies I hope that people would see that I was involved with as a producer or an actor, like Blow or Wag the Dog or The Thomas Crown Affair.
Great movies.
Yeah, but the truth is, it's probably going to be Ice Age fucking 1 through 9. Years from now, people will go, he was the saber-toothed tiger in Ice Age 1 through 9. Then he was replaced by Howard Stern in Ice Age 10. So that's the reality, right? I mean, if you look at...
I was gonna be like, my kid came across Operation Dumbo Drop on Netflix the other night.
Did he really?
No, I'm just saying.
Oh, shit. Don't let him watch that fucking movie. Please.
Should I watch it? I've never seen it.
No, don't see it.
I'll watch it tonight.
Don't waste 2 hours of your life, please. It's safe to say you shouldn't watch that movie.
Liz, I'm curious. Your character, like your character did last season, starts to take a bit of a back seat to what's going on with everybody in the band and who's starting to get a little more famous, or at least starting to get a little more cred. as the actress on the show, who's the star of the show in the first season and is going into the second season, still the star, but it's becoming a bit more of an ensemble
Yeah.
the way that TV shows do. Did you find any kind of sort of relate to that at all? What was going on with your character as to what was going on with you as an actress in the show as well?
I really loved everything I was given this year. I think last year Gigi had a lot to conquer, and she came with a mission, and it was all about laying that groundwork to establishing that trust. She kept, the love thing with, like, does my father love me, make me famous? She had a whole set of things she needed to do. She was very focused. And this year she's more relaxed, and she's lighter, and she's goofier, and she's sillier. And I loved playing all of those things. And then as the season goes on, it takes a whole bunch of turns this season. It's a wild ride. But I actually I maybe had more fun with her this season. And watching it, I enjoyed it with everybody having their own storylines in that way. So taking the back seat, I think, was in a way, having everybody have these big storylines was really beneficial to the show. I think it feels, you never want, I couldn't turn it off. I was sent them before we were all supposed to go to dinner, Elaine and Ailes and I, and they're like, meet me in the lobby. And I was like, oh, I'll be right down. I'm just going to watch one scene. And I fell so far down a rabbit hole watching the episodes. I binge watched them. That when I finally got downstairs 2 hours late to them, I was nervous to talk to them because I thought they were like from a TV show. I forgot that I was also in the TV show, and I was just I hadn't seen any of the amazing scenes we shot, so I was really excited. I love it. I love this whole year. This is my favorite season so far. I know there's only two. I love the first one too.
Is going into a second season the kind of thing where the first season, as the writer and the creator, you feel like you have to sort of follow the storylines that you set out in the pilot, that you sort of built in the pilot, and then in the second season you can get in a room with writers and you guys can just pitch whatever you want and pick the greatest ideas rather than the sort of having to follow through on like the threads that you started in the pilot?
I do feel like
Not that those weren't great threads.
no, but what I'm saying is Tolan, not to go back to Tolan and Shandling, but Tolan and Shandling at the beginning of Larry Sanders, they knew what story they were going to tell you. Like on Rescue Me, we knew where we wanted to go, and in the long run, right, it would almost be like a one-liner. You could say that this guy is a fucked up, firefighter controlled by demons, and then you could look far ahead and say, where do we want him to end, right? So when we started this show, there's certain things that in my head I still know basically how this show would end, but hopefully when you get actors playing the roles, and this is why I don't understand showrunners and film directors who don't want the actors' input. Once you give the actors freedom to improv a little bit or change what you wrote, and then to invest it, and then to sit down and tell you, I think my character should do this or whatever, then you find avenues you hadn't thought of that are still on the same storyline, the basic storyline. This show is ultimately about family and fame, right? Ambition.
And like the Larry Sanders Show, as Gary Shandling always said about that, it's about fame getting in the way of family.
Exactly, right? And it's about my legacy. Other people talk about their legacy, which my character does in his head sometimes and out loud sometimes. So you can't control your fucking legacy. You should just be living it. So I felt, I always feel like I said in the second season, if we're in love with the actors and the way they play the characters, it becomes so much easier to pop new stories in or to create new threads that are still tied to the overall big story. But they certainly offer up, and if you listen to the actors, this is one of the things I think a writer should do. While we're sitting around in between shots, I'll hear Liz say something about something that's going on in her personal life, and I'll notch
And
it
I'll
in
put
my
it in a
head.
script.
I'll put it into a script.
I'll be like, Dennis, like, don't say anything, but
Yeah.
And then I get the script next week, and I'm like, and there it is.
And by the way, and Julianne, who's a great writer, like everything in her personal life, she'll tell you something like, now did that happen to you or one of your friends? She's like, happened to one of my friends, but we're using it. So anything like that.
It's the thing to do. It's smart.
It really is. It's like
Yeah.
some of the best stories come out of the writer's room, but a lot of great stories come out of the actors themselves. There's a scene in, I think it's in episode 9, where Callie Thorne, who plays her mother, and Ava, played by Elaine Hendricks, have a confrontation. They had a great one last year. And this year they had one that I had worked on with Evan Riley, who's another one of our contributing writers. And we've written for Callie a lot on Rescue Me. We wrote the scene, and then Callie and Elaine came to me and they said, we don't like the scene. We actually think it should be completely changed. And these are some of the ideas we came up with. And we sat down the trailer, like their input immediately changed the scene and made it so much fucking better. Never mind that we had to shoot it like in 5 minutes as soon as we were done writing it, and they had to learn those new lines that they came up with. But it also added a couple of twists to the relationship that I hadn't thought of and that Julianne hadn't thought of. So I think the actors take you, if they're good and they play their characters well, they take the story places that writers would not think of on their own. I think the whole writing process, to me on television, it's like being in a theater group. I want my ears open, I want my eyes open, because the actors bring so much more shit to it. And if you see something great, you go, fuck, throw that away, let's use that, you know? It's one of my favorite things about working in TV is the camaraderie and the sense of being in a theater group, because we're all together every day, but the scenes change, and we get to play different elements every day that we go to work. It's not the same show. And the actors come in sometimes on the day of, sometimes she'll come in, or one of the actors, and say, I don't want to do it this way. What about this way? Or I have this idea for this. Corbett does that all the time. Corbett will come in and say, like, hey, how about this? And you go, fuck.
Corbett will do that to me
idea.
too, though.
Yeah, I know.
Like, hey, instead of entering the scene like that, here's how you're going to enter, and here's how you're going to say those lines. And I'm like, Corbett, but then he's right. Like,
He is
every
right.
time, he's really
Right.
good. He just knows stuff sometimes. Like
Even in the
90%.
sex scenes when you guys were in bed, he'd be like, listen, how about this? We do this and this and this. Or she'd say that. Because all of our sex scenes have some comic element.
And the funny thing about those scenes, I had never really done a real sex scene before, and it's not full out. It's funny and it's not. But I did have to kind of be topless, so I was very nervous. And I came out there, and then I just had to keep downsizing what they put on my chest, and then finally I was down to just pasties or whatever we decided on. And it's so technical. He just goes, "It's good. You're fine. It's good." Meanwhile, I'm literally if you're on top of another man with full, and he's just like, "Oh no, you're good. You're good. It'll technically be."
And then we're like, listen, Liz, when you slap him in the face
I'm like,
while,
yes.
while you're fucking him
Yes.
and you're on top,
Yes.
just be careful not to hit your tit.
Oh,
on
don't
the
hit my
side,
tit.
because it'll make it shake over into the other tit.
Oh.
And that doesn't look good. So that's what you're thinking about while you're doing
Literally,
fucking
it's the
love
least
scene.
sexy thing in the world.
Liz, that was great. Listen, we saw your nipple, so let's go back.
Oh no. They're
Yeah,
like, we got to pause for a nipple. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
oh, good. Let's just have somebody flying
Yeah,
in. Not to mention the
by the way,
person crew.
the same thing with him and Elaine when
Oh,
they're
they really
fucking in his apartment. Shit, I just gave away a storyline.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think.
But we were like, all right, like literally, you got to do this. for the actors.
Hypothetically,
You have
if
to
they
go
were
like, guys,
to.
that was great. John, we can see your cock. Elaine, we can see a little bit of your pussy. So let's just go and do it again. Move the thing. Okay, great, let's go. And action. I mean, that's just one of those things,
I want to go back to what you were talking about of sort of being an egoless, or maybe we should just talk about sex scenes for a while.
We can talk about sex scenes if you want.
But I think it's so interesting to talk about this sort of the idea of being like the egoless showrunner who has to take sort of input from everybody because it'll get better that way when so much of the show are jokes about your character's inflated
No, he's
ego.
the best. With collaboration and everything, you're super open to.
I'm the best. Liz
Never
Gillies
mind.
said it on
Get it.
AOL.
On AOL.
Well, it's just sort of this weird place they have to be. That when you get to the place of collaborating on a show or on a movie, you actually have to, many directors and showrunners will say, you have to be egoless because you have to take everybody's input. But in order to sort of get to the place where you build a show to be egoless, you have to have a lot of ego to get there.
Right.
And then the show itself is about your character's
Ego.
overinflated sense of ego.
Right.
But then you have to find this small pocket as a person to be like, okay, now there's no ego right here at this moment,
Yeah, but the thing is, somebody has to be the captain on set, right? So in film, it is the director, and in television, it's the showrunner, right? So for me, sometimes I get a little confused because I'm playing Johnny, and I might be in a group scene with these guys, or just in a scene with me and her alone, whatever. So I do have to think on a certain level, like, all right, what's the best thing here? But I also trust these guys so much, and those, I think they trust my judgment and my partner, Jim Serpico, and whoever's
There's a
directing.
lot of trust. I think that's the base
Yeah,
of.
and we have good directors.
Yeah.
So if Liz goes, I don't think that's that funny, but that was funny when you did it that way. Like, we'll all look at each other like, was that funny or was it funnier the first way?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a team mentality. The only ego involved is, I find the ego comes out of the editing room, really, because that's where you have to make those final calls. And even then,
Yeah.
I like to make sure that our editors are great. I really trust them. So you have to listen to them as well, but you do have to make that final call. And that's where the ego sometimes is like, dude, that big monologue I did that I thought was going to get me fucking, a lot of credit and maybe get me nominated for an award, that has to be cut out because it fucking doesn't belong in this episode. So the ego, that's where the ego really has to, somebody has to be in charge in that final step,
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to turn it over to the audience for some questions. First question.
Hi guys, thanks
Hi.
for being here. My question's for Liz. I remember seeing you in 13 like a million years ago.
Yay.
2 of my friends were in the show with you, so like I got to see like 1,000.
Who?
Eamon, and
Of
then
course. Someone
Eamon
clap for
fans.
Eamon. I love this. I had
And then,
dinner with Eamon a week ago. Fun fact.
And then Lexi, who played bass guitar.
Oh,
is a friend of mine.
sweet. Awesome.
So I was just wondering, since we're in New York, have you seen any shows while you've been here? And if the timing was right, would you want to come back?
I desperately want to come back to Broadway. It's that's my favorite thing. I saw a bunch of shows when I was here. I lived in Williamsburg while we were shooting the show. I saw Blackbird. I saw Beautiful, Book of Mormon, which I'd never seen, and I saw another show that I can't remember.
Did you see Hamilton? Because there's some Hamilton
That's
in this
cute.
season.
No, I can't get tickets.
I don't know if they know that. There's a Hamilton satire in the season this year where
It's divine.
it's called Feast, and it's a hip hop musical based on the Irish potato famine. That we actually mounted it. We went to a theater, built the stage.
Yes.
Campbell Scott plays Campbell Scott, who is the star of Feast.
And he's amazing. The scene
Cam-
with Campbell Scott that I saw, he's amazing.
He's amazing.
Shakespeare actor,
And he came up with the lyrics to the rap he does in the 11 o'clock finale number. It's in episode 8. The entire episode is set at the opening night of Feast, the musical, starring Campbell Scott, and it's fucking delicious. He was brilliant.
It's delicious. I was standing off stage trying to do a scene, and I didn't know about any of this, and they were singing the closing number, and all the reaction. I didn't see it in the final cut. It must have been unusable because my mouth was agape, and I was taken aback by the show. It's amazing. I'm so excited for it. I love it.
I can't wait to see it. I've only seen the setup for it, and
Oh.
it's amazing.
It's so good.
He is fucking hilarious. The opening night, by the way, he's great. And the show is actually, I think we could actually do
It's
the
kind
show.
of proper.
Yeah. He's great in it, but he's also fucking hilarious. You got to see it. It's just, him rapping about the Irish potato famine and dancing with 30 dancers on stage. It's just like,
Just hearing the word potato in a rap that many
I know,
times
it's
is
awesome.
so satisfying.
It's like, he called it Familton. That's what he was calling it. And it was like, dude, we should call the show Familton. You know what I mean? It's awesome.
Next question.
Hi, my question is also for Liz. So
Hey, what the fuck, man?
There's that
come up
ego
with
we
There's
were
my
talking
ego.
about. Yeah.
He gets very so. Just come up with
I
something
knew
for
it.
him first.
These fucking guys.
Say,
come
what's your
down
favorite
here.
color? Anything. He needs something.
I like purple.
There you go. Okay, what's your question?
So I know that you wrote some of the songs for the album. So I'm just curious, how much of it is Liz in the song, and how much is your character in the show?
Well, I wrote. Dennis was cool enough to say, "Hey, write some songs if we like." He said if we like them, we'll put them in the show. I wrote 2 songs, and I wrote from the POV of Gigi, definitely, because I wanted to get them in the show. I tried to think of, a certain style of music that would work with the show, but that I also liked. So it was kind of a mesh of what I liked, mixed with what I think would work for the show. And then thematically, whatever, the lyrics, I tried to guess some storylines that would have happened. And I think I guessed kind of right. What? He just whipped around like a bat.
No, I think you did, and I
tried to.
Yeah, I feel like clearly in the course of this long story that we have to tell if we get renewed for season 3, there's going to be a point in this story. There always was, and I told you this last year, where I think Gigi not only has to learn to become a great songwriter, but actually has to at some point tell her dad, I'm good. I don't really fucking need your help anymore, because that's a key moment I think in that relationship. So. Having 2 songs of hers this year was a nice little addition for us.
It seems to be a key moment in all the relationships, and for me, what the show is building towards is the moment where he has to face himself without anybody else, and say, how talented am I? How worthful? How much worth do I have?
Let's go with it.
Yeah,
Worthful.
not
Yeah,
really
man. Listen,
worth.
that's the ultimate story. The long range story in this thing is really about these 2. It's about the gang. I call the gang of 4: Ava, Flash, Gigi, and Johnny. We're all so involved and intertwined with each other. But ultimately, the story is about, between those 4 people, everybody's got to learn something. And Johnny, I think, learns in tiny little increments. Like he gave up cocaine last year. You know what I mean?
That was huge,
At
but still
at
does
age
every other
50.
drug.
What a breakthrough. You know what I mean? So I feel like eventually what he's going to have to do is to end up loving his daughter for the sake of who she is, as opposed to I love her because I do love her, but I also think I can make some money off of her. That's sort of like that stage dad aspect that he has in his head. I think we're on the verge of that. We teased that in the finale, like a couple of places he might have to
think
go.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as a rock singer, he's not the greatest rock singer of all time, and he's kind of like a jack of all trades, master of none. Whereas the Corbett's guitar player is a master guitar player. The bass player is a master photographer and bass. what's Johnny really a master of?
That's
Not
the-
giving up.
Yeah, well, I think that's the
Eventually-
question. That's the question
got hustle.
of the series, right? It's like
Yeah.
ultimately he's just. I mean, I don't want to say this is like this big lesson, comically and dramatically. He's got to learn how to just be a fucking dad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a certain point. Either he's going to learn that or he's not. So, but that's a big fucking thing to learn, man. I'm a dad. It took me a while to figure out, like, besides just putting food on the table, like, you realize, wait a minute. Once you have kids, it's either really about them or it's not. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what you do for a living. So I think Johnny, it's going to take Johnny some time to learn that lesson because he just found out he had the kid a year ago. You know what I mean? So.
And I'm fully grown.
And she's fully grown.
Surprise,
He arrived
Daddy.
fully grown.
Next question. I think this is our last question.
Hi,
Oh, really?
Dennis. This is for you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Actually, guys, I'm sorry.
I
Dennis,
thought,
I'm sorry.
I thought it
We're,
would never happen.
We're out of time, actually, guys. Sorry. Wrap it up. Wrap it up.
My question for you is, since playing this role and living life, who do you think is the epitome of the rock star life culture? Like, what artist do you think fits that mold?
Like the ultimate rock star? It's such a tough vote. We just talked about Bowie, like in some regards, being the greatest, rock artist of all time. When you just talk pure rock star, I think everybody would have to say on some level that it belongs to people like Jagger. You know what I mean? But for me, I can't pick one because to me, when I think of rock star, I think of Bowie, I think of Jagger, I think of Chrissy Hynde. I think of guitar players that are rock stars like Richards or Pete Townsend. I'm just trying to think of some young artists. I don't know if you know this artist, Lizzo. Do you know who she is? If you don't, look her up. Do you know who she is?
Who? Say the name?
Lizzo, this rapper she's not even just a rapper, she's from Minnesota. She did this fucking great set recently on Steve Colbert's show. So Google that. She's a fucking rock star. She's so fucking talented. So I feel like Mick Jagger wins that contest most of the time, but
It's still kind of the first, or one
yeah.
of the first.
But to
I mean,
me also, I got to tell you, like fucking Lady Gaga, man. When you watch Lady Gaga perform, that's a rock star. Like in that sense of like Bowie, I think she's going to be around for.
And she can play piano. And
She's
sing
going to be around
most
for the
basic
next 60
instruments.
years. Fucking Adele, you know what I mean? Like you look at Adele, the first time you see her sing, you go like, holy shit. Now I watch her sing now, and I go, this fucking chick, she's in, you know. To me,
Liz does an amazing Adele and who was
Yeah.
the parody in that?
Stevie Nicks.
A Stevie Nicks Adele
Yeah.
parody together. It was really great. That was you who doing that, right?
yeah.
Oh, of course.
She
It's
came
so
up with
weird.
that.
Who else would it be? It's so strange.
It's great. She does she does her own little duet impersonation of Stevie Nicks and Adele
it's supposed
singing
to-
together.
Yeah, Dennis was like, "Can you impersonate any singers?" I was like, "Well, yeah. What do you kind of?" He's like, "Two ones that are really different." And I was like, "All right." So then he said, "Just screw around with something," and it ended up being if Stevie Nicks were to somehow get Adele's number and call her, and Adele just wasn't
It's
having
fucking
it.
funny as shit.
It's weird.
I think it's in episode 2 or 3. It's really fucking funny.
Do you want to give us a preview or?
I don't think so. I don't think I can.
It's
It's
better
a
if you
whole
see it
thing.
on
I
TV.
need to just get really into it, and I
No,
can't.
I know. I would say
insane.
no in this situation if I were you too, but I felt like it was my responsibility for them to ask.
privately
And I'm
agree
actually
with
sorry for putting you on the
No,
spot.
it's you know what? It's fine. You threw me out there, and now I'm embarrassed.
It's
I feel
amazing.
bad.
It's amazing when you do it when you do it on the show, guys. I think I have to let you go. Congratulations on season 2.
Thanks, man.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks so much for being here. When is it on? When can people see the premiere?
Well, tonight.
Tonight at 10.
Tonight at
Tonight
10
at 10.
on FX, guys.
FX.
Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll. Thank you so much.